Alright, so today we have a Traxxas Bandit VXL. This is the Traxxas buggy. It comes with the brushless system. It's the 4-pole, which they're using now. Long ago they used to have a 2-pole system. It does come with the TQI radio 2.4. I can't really get the camera. There we go. System. So you can get the link to do some programming using your mobile phone. It also comes with the stability control management, which what that does is it steers the car. So if you start losing stability, it just steers the car one way or the other to try to stabilize the car, either on full throttle or off jumps. So according to them, it can be 70 plus miles per hour, 115 plus kilometers per hour. That's with the gearing change, so you need to change the gearing on it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and unbox it. Now this one here is actually the green version. So the first thing that we have, very neatly packed, is the Traxxas Transmitter. So this is the TQI. They do have a TQ version. The TQ does not have the Bluetooth capability. So this one here, you would just remove this cover, and then you could get the link, which will enable the Bluetooth function, and then you can change settings using your mobile phone. It just takes 4 AA batteries, right? Just like any standard Traxxas controller. You can also use rechargeable batteries for this. I mean, any AA type batteries. And then you have your trims here. The steering trim, you may have to work with this one, and you're gonna leave them there. And then your setting buttons, but I will show you how those work in a different video. But other than that, feels like a standard radio. You do get the bag. And in the bag, you get a few accessories. You get this little piece of foam. This is actually pretty good. It goes in the chassis, I'll show you. So if you're running shorty packs, this is very good. You get a few more body clips. These are for the servo. So if you change the steering horn, you may need to replace those right on top of the servo. Get some basic tools. To be honest, invest in a good set of tools. I like MIP. MIP makes great tools. I will talk about these in a different video. That would be my recommendation. Here's the optional gear that you will need. Right here, this is the optional Pinion Gear. So if you want to go fast. Again, not something you want to use in a track or to bash. This is just for this. So your motor will heat up if you try running it in a track. You get some stickers for the body right in here. And register your product. A little advert, batteries and chargers. Traxxas does make some really high quality batteries. The only thing about them, to be honest, is their soft packs. Soft packs, if you crash hard enough, especially if you're doing speed runs, you can damage them easier than you would a hard pack. So you may want to invest in a high quality hard pack. But if you want just easy plug and play, Traxxas chargers and Traxxas batteries are very easy to work with. It does come with instructions for the TQI radio. So again, this is if you get the optional Traxxas link. And here are some other optional parts too if you want all the telemetry. You can find this all online in at Traxxas.com. You get the manual. The manual I recommend you keep, as well as the guide, because it does have some useful information, especially for starters. If you're not a starter, or if you have somebody that has experience, then you may not need this, as that individual probably has experience and will know what to do. But this, I believe, is very, very important, and you should keep it. Just file it somewhere. And then here, this here also keep, because it has all the part numbers for all the parts you could possibly need for your vehicle. Especially if you're disassembling it and reassembling it. Those exploded views are great. Here, these are for the shocks. You're going to need them if you ever rebuild them. They go inside of the shock. That's the piston part. These clips here, these are the preloads for the shocks. So you get different sizes depending on the preload that you want to use. But now, what we are waiting for, Traxxas Rustler. So here is the vehicle. Just need to remove some items. Now, once you remove the body clips, there are some tie straps you're going to have to cut. My recommendation, just use a pair of snips. Snip that right off. And you can remove the cardboard, as well as the tie strap. Alright. So now, I'm going to remove the body. And just take the plastic bag out. And you're going to have some information here. So this details your warranty and also usage. Do read this carefully before you operate the vehicle. If you have already operated Traxxas vehicles before, any VXL models, they're all the same for all VXL models. All right, here we go. So one of the things that you want to do, notice how these wires are really close to the shocks. They're actually touching the shock spring. You want to just rearrange them so that they're not touching. Something you can do is point them down. I will probably end up using a tie strap to strap these down, because I do not want them rubbing here, especially when the suspension is working up and down. It can damage it. The box is really neat here for the receiver. So this receiver box, you can just remove this little portion here so you can access the receiver. If you need to reprogram it or anything, you can just reach inside with a tool, and you can do that, which is pretty neat. All of the electronics are sealed, so you can drive this through the water, yet don't submerge it for a long period of time. To be honest, I don't really recommend running in the wet all the time, because eventually all your turnbuckles will start rusting, and I just don't like my stuff rusting. So that's what we have. In the rear, we have some off-road tires. These could probably work for carpet because of the type of pin. I mean, they're square. They will probably work, but not the fronts. Fronts would probably not work in carpet. These, just asphalt. To be honest, as a basher, they're pretty inexpensive. They're good cars to run. You're probably looking at about $260 for this model. All you need are batteries, so you will need a battery for the vehicle. If you already have them, you're good to go. Here we go, VXL motor. Now, something that is important, let's just say you needed to access the servo. That'd be interesting if they had a turbo. The servo, you actually have to remove this plate here because the servo is going to be mounted inside. So if you ever need to service the vehicle or you want to get a faster servo, different type of servo, or let's just say you want to get the metal gears because you want to get rid of the Servo Saver, so you want to get the Traxxas version with the metal gears, you're going to have to remove this plate to access the servo. So for this, we are going to go ahead and remove the plate. So you're going to need two drivers for this plate. The first driver that you're going to need is a 2mm, and you're going to need a 2.5mm. So the rear screws are actually 2mm. Now, some of you have power tools. That's great. They work well. I like doing everything by hand. Loosening, you can use power tools and do it easily. Just go slow. If you back them out too fast, you can really mess up the threads or heat up the plastic. It just weakens the plastic. When you're screwing everything back on, I like doing it by hand so I can feel. That way I don't damage the plastic and mess up the threads. Then you're going to have to go in there and do some work. CA glue sometimes works if you dump a little drop of CA glue in the plastic and then wait until it dries and then drive the screw back in. But just avoid the hassle. I don't mind tooling by hand. I've built many vehicles by hand. I kind of enjoy it. Gives me something to do. All right, first step is complete, and always keep track of your screws. I'm actually just setting them up here, just off camera to the side in order. So I place these kind of in front and then the ones in the rear in the back. That way I know which one goes where. But the cool thing about this is I need to remove one more screw, but when you remove that plate, everything comes out, which is what I want to show you. All right, so total screws. I removed this one here for the link. Usually you're probably going to remove the link here from the Servo Saver. These two screws, these two screws. All right. So that being said, once you have this, one other thing, you can either remove these links here, these are the turnbuckles, inside or on the outside. It just depends on what is easier for you and what you're going to do really. If you were going to replace the steering belt crank here, I would remove them over here. If you're not going to replace the steering belt crank, I would remove them over here. So let's just pretend we're going to replace the steering belt crank. So I'm just going to do it here. I'm putting pressure on the screw down here. Usually you're going to need a tool. But to be honest, if you just put pressure on the head of the screw, these nuts will just come out. So this here is a 5.5mm driver by, again, MIP. Buy really good tools. I cannot emphasize enough. I mean, bad tools can really give you a bad day, mess up your day, especially if you start just messing up the heads on the screws or messing up the nuts. So just buy good quality tools. Some of them may seem a little expensive, but they're well worth it. And it's not just because of the machining, which, I mean, these tools look fabulous. It's just because it saves you headaches on not messing up hardware. Because sometimes it can be a real challenge just getting some of that stuff off. All right, there we go. So again, I took these out. The idea is that you would replace this here. Now, the reason why you would probably want to replace this is this can break. They generally break right about here. Especially if you start going with metal gear servos, higher torque servos, and then you get rid of the Servo Saver. So as soon as you replace the Servo Saver on this setup, you're going to break the gears first. So let's assume you got the X version, the 2075X, which is what comes in the TRX4 metal gear servo. Let's just say you want more response. You're going to replace the Servo Saver with just a metal horn. It can be aluminum, cast, steel, whatever. It'll be metal. Well, when you replace that, something has to take the impact. So this spring is no longer going to be taking an impact. There's a spring in there for this servo. So what's going to take the impact is your servo, which will be metal, very strong. This is the weak link. So these are going to start snapping. All right. So in order to remove the servo, there's a few steps that you have to take now. One, there are 4 screws here. But also you need to open up the receiver box to unplug the cable. And for this, you are going to need the 2.0mm driver to remove these bigger screws. Now I'm going to do these out of order, because I'm also going to use the 2mm driver to remove this cap. So I'm just going in order from front to back. And I have removed the cap. Now one thing that you're going to notice is this little piece of foam, and then you're going to notice this jelly. This jelly is to keep it sealed. Because as soon as you run a wire, wire's round, the foam is not going to be able to form completely around the wire and create a seal, so you need that jelly to keep a good seal. This is the reason why, one of the reasons why I removed it. You also need to remove it so you can actually take the wire out, you will see. So just put that aside. We're going to go back to the 2.5, and there's just a screw in the back, right back here. You remove this one right here. And that is it. Now you can remove this little box, and as you remove the box, everything's tethered in here, right? So just kind of work these wires, untether it, and then follow the wire that corresponds to the servo. Servos are generally channel 1, so to be honest, you don't even have to find the wire. Just look for channel 1. It's going to be this bottom one, and then grab it. I like grabbing the little plastic. I don't really like pulling on wires. That's why you saw me use both hands. Sure, you can pull on the wires and take it out, but I would rather not. But that is it. Now you have the servo completely free. Just set this aside, and here we go. So now we're just going to continue pulling the servo, assuming you are going to replace it. So take your driver again. This is a 2.5. It's actually a 2.0. So let's use the 2.0. 2.5. Ah, there we go. 2.5, and just remove those 4 screws. Now you're going to need these screws for your replacement servo. Now it's the same steps regardless of whether you get a Traxxas Servo or not. If you want to keep a Traxxas, like I said, just get the 2075X. That's the one with the metal gears. It also generally comes with a dark gray body instead of the blue, so that's also how you can tell them apart by color. There is a difference in color. Now, even if you were colorblind, you would still be able to tell the difference in the shade. So don't use that as an excuse that you can't tell them apart. I mean, in that case, I guess just use the X. And once you do this, servo just comes out. Now, I like leaving the stuff back where it goes. So now I'm going to work with the servo. Now, like I said, I actually took the steering off here. but normally you'd remove it over here. So first thing, there's a nut here. This is why I did it. So this is a 5.5, and I'm just going to unscrew the nut. And for this one, it is spinning, so I am going to use a driver. So just put a driver on the other side. And just, again, left in relationship to the driver. So this one, I'm going to turn left. This one, so this one I'm turning left. And this one, I'm just going to turn right. But it's actually left with relationship to the driver. So I'm just going to twist them both at the same time. And that's it. It makes it a lot easier. Now I'm just going to back one out. So here we go. So again, the reason why I removed the link here is because of this nut. I mean, if you didn't know, now you do. I've taken these apart before, so I already knew there was a nut there. That's why I already knew this was the easiest way to go. Now remember the orientation. All right. Although it's the same length. If you put it on backwards, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. And there we go. So we have the link off. So this is something that we're going to need. Again, keep all your screws organized. Don't lose them. Now, if you're going to use the Servo Saver, remove the Servo Saver. Something else to notice is when you remove the servo's pointing down. Actually, it's pointing up. It was this way. So the servo's pointing up. Long story short, it's perpendicular. You want to make sure that when you install the other one, the new one, that this is also perpendicular. So there's a few steps that you're going to want to do instead just to make sure that it lines up in a perpendicular fashion. But this is it. Now, if you really wanted to remove the Servo Saver, you just grab your 2mm driver, you place it in here, hold this tab in between your fingers like this, and twist. And the reason why you want to do this is, even though it moved a little, is you don't want it to move too much because there's some little internal stops. And remember, this is all plastic inside. You don't want to break your servo by cranking it really hard and turning the servo. I mean, this will turn, but eventually it will stop, and you don't want to break it going those stops. Same thing, once you install another one like this, you just have to tighten it enough just to where it feels tight. Don't over tighten anything. You're gonna break stuff, especially the plastic. But this is a servo, and those little plastic caps that we had seen, the little white ones, this is where they go. These here. So if your horn is a different size, you would just put one of these caps there on the servo, and then you could use a different type of horn. Depends on the horn that you buy. So this is it. And these servos work on Bandits. It's the same servo on the Slash. It's really, this is the common servo that Traxxas uses on Rustlers and many of their common vehicles. Usually 1/10 scale stuff. This is the Servo Saver. Servo Saver just has a spring in here, so this can actually rotate independently from this a few degrees. And then the spring just brings it back. So again, if you're just bashing, keep the Servo Saver. But if you want something it's a little more in the race environment, you probably want a lot more response. You're going to want to get rid of the Servo Saver, because the Servo Saver does make the vehicle feel, say, numb or unresponsive. So that's it for this part of the video.